How you doing? Everybody, is the sound okay and the video okay? Is everything working all right? Waiting, waiting for a response. Okay, well, I'll start yakking away while I'm waiting. Um, what I wanted to talk about today, I thought would be sort of interesting, is going to how much your decisions for watch buying is affected by, when you go to a watch show or you go to some other kind of watch gathering, is that does this really have an impact on us? The reason I'm asking about this, we've got in about that's a little less than a month from now. There's this great big watch show in New York City that a lot of us will be going to. And I remember last time we spent all the time just talking to each other. I don't know if we got anywhere as far as deciding on which watch to get. But I thought, well, the reason I like to go to those because I like to talk to other watch collectors. So um, we'll see. Hey, Dominic, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Uh, got my old satellite work shirt on. I mean, this is most of what I had my shirt on. The work I did was mostly programming. So, hey, John, how you doing? Good to see you too, Dominic. Hi, Goldfinger. I take it, unless I had been informed otherwise, everything's working okay with the sound and all. I'm hoping. Okay. Hi, 911 Euro. Good to see you. Caesar, how are you? So, hi, HRM. I got one old school watch trade fair nearby me. Always some incredible deals to be found. There, as they only take cash. Well, that can be an advantage. I want to be a big advantage. Uh, oh, good. Everything's working good. Thank you. Boy, I feel like I'm under a spotlight. I have the curtain open a little, and I was hoping for a cloudier day, but I end up looking like I'm being grilled. Um, there are a couple things. HRM, the watch time show in New York. I maybe at the end of the show you can make some kind of deal so somebody doesn't have to carry as many watches home with them, and you can buy them. But for the most part, the idea is that you go to the watch store, the watch show, and then on Monday you go into your AD and buy one of their watches. Um, I spent a lot of time talking to different people, watchmakers and fellow watch collectors, but I'm trying to think if there was ever one I said, I talked to this guy and ran out and bought his watch. Um, I did. I've met and talked with Marco Lang, and I don't remember whether I had one of his watches before or after I met him at the watch show. I'm trying to think what else. I um, I went to one of the shows. FP Jorn showed up, but I had both of my FP Jorns in. This is before the pandemic. I don't think they've been to any other shows. I talked to the guys in New York at the FP Jorn boutique there, and I said, "Are you guys going to the Watch Time show?" And they said, "No, we don't have enough people to cover it here." So anyway, I mean, a lot depends on who happens to be at the show. This one that's coming up, I know that Lang and Heim are going to be there, and that's the first time they've come since Marco Lang was running things. The shows are excellent for meeting fellow collectors. Yeah, and seeing the watches in person. There was a watch that I should take a watch with a quick takeoff band because I like to, take wrist shots and things like that. And there was this one watch that was sort of about. Went and saw it in person, took some wrist shots, did some things like that. And I didn't get it, but some other people did, and told me that, hey, yeah, I saw that, and it looked pretty good. So, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, Dominic, that's exactly right. The one that I ran, not only do they look different, but they feel different on the wrist. I've always liked Laurent Perrier's designs, but I try them on, and I haven't found one yet that one I can afford. Two that seems to fit okay. Hey, Caesar, I'll tell you about Dubai Watch Week, and I'll try to get the Streamliner blue enamel dial. Wow, that'd be nice. Yeah, that would be a good one to see, Caesar. Hey, John, let's see. I feel that it's more discussion group like this one which make us jump the gun. I think you're right. It's really funny. A lot of the ideas that I get for what the videos and stuff I get from here, from you guys. Somebody says something and boom, say, hey, that looks like a great idea for a video, or they'll simply say something in the comments like, hey, why don't you do a video on Acme watches? We haven't seen anything like that. So yeah, these discussions, I think, and then when I work on a video, a lot of times I find out about watches I didn't know about until I started working on it, because usually it takes some research. I got to go dig stuff up. Another thing too, a lot of times you'll have misinformation. God knows, do we get misinformation in this hobby? And a lot of the misinformation is not by people who are lying about something or trying to sell it, but they simply didn't quite have it right, and there was missing information. And so a lot of times at a watch show, you can go and you can talk to people and say, hey, is this true or is this true? And sometimes they'll be able to help you. Sometimes they got somebody they hired for the show and they're not exactly up on anything, except, boy, isn't this pretty? Oh, let's see. I agree about the Laurent Perrier titanium's too light. Tried the Sport Auto and didn't like, despite loving the design. Yeah, Caesar, exactly what happened to me. I just looked at it. It looks great, but it just didn't feel right. A guy that I went with was I think maybe he was an attorney. I forgot who he was. He was real nice guy. He and I went together to Cellini's in New York City, and he was trying on some too, but he liked them, and they concluded that the problem was the titanium was too light. But if we had them in platinum or gold, they would have the kind of heft that I like. This one is FP Journe in platinum, and platinum turns out to be a little heavier and it's just the right kind of heft I like. Yeah. Well, a steel one wouldn't, steel's not bad. I understand that titanium is harder to work with, but I could be wrong. I've see so many titanium watches that are, reasonably priced. Usually when I hear about, even though the price of gold is higher than the price of platinum these days, platinum watches cost more. And what I found out is that it's a harder metal to work with. To me, like I said on many occasions, I can't tell the difference between platinum, white gold, and steel. I mean, somebody's got one or the other on. I can't tell the difference. And I never liked white gold for some reason, but now I really like it. Mainly because some of my favorite watches are white gold. I, this guy, um, my Parmigiani Ovale is white gold. And you talk about a big. This has got a lot of heft. One, it's a big watch, but uh, the horn lugs on this thing. A lot of people see the horn lugs on one of the Parmigianis, these great big ones, and they say, "Oh, those look terrible." Well, first of all, they look fine to me, but they're so comfortable because they sort of wrap around your wrist. Anyway, and that's the kind of thing. If you go to a watch show or something like that, and you try one on, and you say, "Oh, hey, that's not so bad." Yeah, John. Yeah, it is. I think you're right. It's more like a discussion group. You go to these shows, and um, I was at the one I went to last year, the Watch Time show. I went to go visit the H. Moser booth, and it was so crowded I couldn't get to it, so I gave up and went somewhere else. But this year, what I'm going to do is that as soon as the show begins, I'm going to spend at least the first hour visiting as many of the different booths as I can and talk to people. I'm going to get my stuff because I got about an hour. After about an hour, I hope that a bunch of us can meet up and yak it up about our Larique watches or some other kind of or guys who are going who are in these discussion groups. You can meet face to face. There's nothing like seeing a watch in the flesh to make us decide. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's really true. I think you know, uh, you have. I don't know. I tell you, working at a watch show, I think it'd be crazy. A friend who lives not far from me is a U.S. representative for Chopek and Mike Margolis. And whenever I go to the show, I can talk to Mike about 2 seconds because there's so many people there, and I don't want to, I don't want to take over the show. And so, we'll have to go get a cup of coffee back home before we can get anything in because, that's people who are showing watches at art shows, at watch shows. I'll tell you though, there are other kinds of things that you can do. I've had some really good discussions with Christine Hutter and Vianney Halter on sort of a little more in depth on with Christine. I'm hoping that we can get a deal so that we can get some of those hematic movements and see what we can do with that. That'd be a lot of fun. And that's because of the watch show. Now, I think the last year she told me she said in about 3 years. Well, I'll go back and say, remember me? Yeah, the watch in the flesh. Yeah, that's true. I think, I guess there are watches to discover too. I think the big thing is that sometimes I'll see a picture of it, um, and I'll look at it, and it's not. It just doesn't do anything to me. But then I'll see it in the flesh, so to speak, in person, in the metal, and go, "Wow, that's really a cool watch." So it's. I agree that and then also too, sometimes I'll look at a watch and say, that one's too big for me or too small. But then you try it on, and the ones you thought were too big or too small are just right or just wrong, depending. What are some other things that happen at some other thoughts you have about that? Just done some research on the Jacquet 736, It indeed shares a bunch of parts with ETA 7001, namely escapement, mainspring, balance wheel, hairspring, some of the gear train, and some of the keyless work. Yeah, HRM, what Jacques SA used to do, they simply buy the iBoches and then they'd make these movements. And for watch companies, that was a great thing because they didn't have to make a whole new movement. They'd simply get them already done and fixed from Jacques. And not only did he do that, he made shape movements like the 736. And so for much less, far less than it would cost them to go out and sort of start on something like that from scratch. And so to me, it's like a really interesting, very interesting brand to have. Michael, that's a good point. Some do, but I've never ordered one there, but I do know some do. There's usually a show in New York that goes on at the same time as the Watch Time show. An outfit called Watch and Warn has it, and that's where they have sort of almost like a flea market, but not, I mean, sort of a little better than a flea market. But there you can go and actually, get a watch right at the show. Maintenance on a Jacques should be no issue because of the of that as well. Yeah, and the 7001 is a great base. I agree. I have no worries about getting one of those fixed. I usually my philosophy about service is that as long as everything is working fine, leave it alone. It's really hard for me to do it on a schedule because I rotate watches, and so I could have, if I had wore a watch 365 days a year, that'd be one thing. But if I wore like twice a month, then in a year it would have like 24 times that I wore it versus 365. So it depends on the watch. And so if the watch is acting goofy, that will be when I take it in for service. Another thing at this next show, what I want to do is I want to talk to some people about service and find out. Say, hey, tell me about the service. I also like to get business cards if they have them. Say, so you have somebody direct to contact. One watch I like more in person than images is Speak Marine Ripples. Yeah, Speak Marine stuff. His stuff is really good. I like it a lot. I like the ripples anyway too. A lot of brands allow you to make an appointment at those shows. Yeah. That's another thing. They've got, their big thing is selling watches one way or the other. And a lot of times you'll see what amounts almost to a prototype. And if they get a lot of interest in it, then they'll get an idea of how many they should produce. And so I think one of the functions for the watchmaker at the watch show is for, grubbies like ourselves to go up there and say, I want one of those. and they can say, oh, okay, they, whistle up the parts makers and so forth and get what they need. Have I ever bought a watch without trying it? Most of my watches I bought without trying it, to tell you the truth. I never, I saw this thing, my Ovale. I'd wanted it for so many years. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen one of these, an actual one, because there aren't too many of them. And it was so far out of my price range that I just, what I feel, I lucked into it. One of the things I would like to find out about this watch, because I like it so much, how would you what would it cost to have something like this service. I mean, here you've got this whole subset of gearing just for the telescopic hands. How do you, who do you take it to? Who do you ask about that? So yeah, most of my watches I buy without trying them. There's, in fact, the great majority of the watches I have, I never tried on. In fact, I've never seen them in quote in person before, but I know about them. I know about the movement. I know about who made them. I know, all kinds of stuff. But I was, sometimes you get a watch and sort of on an urge. You say, "Oh man, I want to have that." You're looking at eBay or you're looking at Chrono 24, and you see this one. You say, "Holy smoke, what a deal!" That's how most recently. That's how I got my all my last 3 watches. My Moritz Grossman. I'd never seen one like that before. The my Parmigiani Lune, and then my Parmigiani Ovale, which I knew about, but I'd never tried on. So yeah, it's, I'm not saying that's the most responsible way to do things, but that's the way I do them. I had tried this one on my FP Journe and seen it when I got it. So, it was, of course, it didn't have a blue band. This goes with my denim. I don't know why. It doesn't sound right, does it? Yeah, HRM, you're absolutely right. See, that's why I'm afraid to take it in for service, is that some guy says, "Oh, hey, I can handle this." I went to WASAP or whatever the Watch school is, and I just got my degree, so I can work on anything. Yeah, those telescopic hands are, what do they call them? Panographic hands. I don't know. I'd almost rather have it inaccurate and acting a little funky than to have somebody get in there who doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, like, you can't blame them. Most watchmakers, you take a watch to most watchmakers, and something HRM just said about the 7001. It's got a fairly standard set of gearing in that just about any watchmaker is familiar with. Hey, Ghost, how you doing? Where did you find the Grossman? I found it in Dubai, I want to say. I think it's Dubai. I got it in Dubai. That's another thing too. When I got my Langenheim, I got an email, or it was either an email or some kind of contact from this guy. He said, "Hey, are you still interested in Langenheim?" I said, "Yeah, I am." I said, "What do you have?" He said, "Well," he says, "I work for this bank in Oman, I think, and somewhere in Qatar and the Persian Gulf. And this bank has a deal, and they're getting them at half price." I said, "Holy smoke!" He said, "You want me to see if you want to see if you can get one?" I said, "Yeah, I do." So he put me in touch with this, I guess, someone who was in charge of it, and she told me, she said, "No, you got to be you have to work for the bank in order to get this deal," which is, not surprising. And then I got a thing back from her. She said, "Somebody passed on theirs. Are you interested in a Frederick 2? It's exactly the one I was interested in. So, you never know where a good deal is coming from. And I've got them from everywhere. From Europe, from Switzerland, from Asia, from Africa, everywhere. There's it's one of those things. I think in today's world, we're like, the only reason that I really prefer to get them here in the United States is you don't have to go through customs. That's otherwise, man, I don't care where they're from. It doesn't matter to me. Good morning, Space G95. FP's urine can be tried without the movement. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. The thing is that, unless there's some kind of weird thing that a country has about importing stuff, man, I'll tell you, I'll import stuff from all over the world. There's certain places that I know where you can't, like, I really wish that Russia, because the Russians are really into it, but I wish that, all they got to do is get the hell out of Ukraine and leave them alone, and then whatever other thing they're being banned for. But what's if that's going on with any country, maybe the U.S. will get banned for something someday, service right, for being smart alecks. But the thing of it is that I have no prejudice or sort of ethnocentrism about where I get my watches. A good watch can come from anywhere. Like my band that I got, the Ming Bang, I'd rather have that Ming band. That thing is just gorgeous. I can't think of a single Swiss watch bracelet maker that I'd rather have. So I think, that's just the way I am now. It's, greedy for watches. It doesn't matter where they're from. Okay, enough of that. Contacting the company directly instead of going through Chrono24 can also save you a pretty penny. I'm all for that. I thought if a dial sounds too good, you should run. A deal sounds too good. You're right, Michael. If a deal is too good to be true, it usually isn't. Hasn't been my case. Because there's certain ones I pass on. They just don't. I mentioned this before. A friend of mine used to have this term. He says, there's something wrong with them. Their socks squeak. It's just an expression. It's an idiom that means there's something wrong with it. You don't feel right about. And if that happens, I walk away real quick, even though I could walk away from a great deal. And but you're right. If a deal sounds too good, sometimes it is. Sometimes you have to figure out a really good deal. Let's say on this one. I knew the person I was buying it from. I mean, I thought I did anyway. How this person out on the West Coast, and I had simply mentioned, I said, well, if you ever get one at this price, let me know. And he did. And I got it. And it's been just an excellent deal. The same thing with the Moritz Grossman. There was one that I didn't know anything about, and it turned out to be a fantastic deal. Going back and forth with the seller, sometimes a great deal will come out of necessity on the other end. You look at a watch and you say, yeah, I can see. Very few people would want that watch for one reason or another. And so you have to figure that in. So what may look like, some people may be face to face with a really great deal and not really look into why it is. Sometimes the person just needs the money. They get themselves, sideways financially, and so they got to sell some watches, sort of like Hodinkee. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Okay, one seller in Switzerland offered to drive 30 kilometers to France to save on 25% import tax. That's called smuggling. I bet. There's certain things I can't talk about, but yes, that could happen. With the amount we're paying for watches, 25% can be a whole lot of money. In Switzerland, it's 8.5%. In France, it's 25%. The difference in the VAT. In the U.S., it's I think on the movement, it's like 1.5% or something like that. But on the case, it's more. And so you jack up when they want an estimate, the breakdown, I always have put the big price on the movement. And that's one thing I'll say for importing into the U.S., very inexpensive. Yeah, Michael. But in a lot of times, sometimes if it is too good, uh, another thing you got to watch out for. This is another alarm bell for too good to be true. If somebody says, "Oh, I got to do it right away," I got trying to force it on you. That's another one. That's another sort of signal that hey, something's funny with this. Something's wrong. And that happened to me once. I was making a deal with a guy in Germany, and he said, we got to do it today because tomorrow I'm leaving. I said, let me know when you get back. I just, there's all kinds of things to look for that if it doesn't feel right, walk away. Oh, that's good. Me too, Spec. I used to watch Archie back in the day. Archie really used to have some really good stuff, and I guess he sort of made a turn. I'm on the entry floor budget, and I tell you, that's probably a really good place to start because you have to work harder to really find a good buy, and so you have to learn a lot more about watches and horology. If you have a lot of money, you can be stupid and go out and buy stuff that because you can afford anything. Not a good thing. Okay, my time is up. I'm looking at my clock. Rancher's not here to send off an alarm, but I've got to get going. So let me take one more, and I got to run. I wonder how many of the fake Rolex watches Jacquet produced that are still in. I don't know if they got any of them done. They may have gotten caught beforehand, but I do know they stole all of these Rolex gold cases. Now, this is back in right around 2001, I think, because it was in it was in 2008 when Jacquet went to jail. Okay, so there's I don't know if what happened to the Rolex cases. They could have simply taken the Rolex cases, melted them all down, and sold the gold. But that was that involved robbery. This was more than just somebody being a fraud. That's a really interesting story, HRM, about the whole thing, and it involved, I think, Urban Jurgensen, Minerva. It was just huge scandal at the time. Anyway, guys, I gotta go. As I say, it's rolling pin time or frying pan time. Yeah, I tell you, HRM, Google the affair Jacquet, and you can find out some. There is some stuff. It's just not easy to find yet, and do it in French. It sounds better. Take care, everybody. Thanks for showing up this afternoon. Any ideas for topics? Let me know. Take care.